golf is definitely a passion of mine. And, I found a lot of parallels sort of between the two. Obviously, on the golf course, you do see a lot of people who work in real estate, whether that's brokers, mortgage brokers, investors, etc. So not only is it a fun hobby, but a great place to do some networking and find some investors and stuff as well. But sort of I put together a list of some of the top ways that golf expertise translates into real estate victories, and you started to hit on it. So the first one is patience and persistence, right? So as we both know, golf requires patience and persistence to improve your game, qualities that are also super essential in real estate investing, where, deals can take time to materialize. And, in golf, right, mastering a difficult shot, whether, it's a flop shot or being able to do a draw or a fade or, on demand, right, which we all wish that we could, or maybe I'm speaking for myself personally. I don't know where your game's at these days. But, it certainly requires repeated practice and learning from each attempt. And, progress might be slow, but the persistence eventually pays off, right?
We all make some kind of a financial model when we're buying a house for rent or an apartment building or an office building, and then it's going to include things like, okay, well, the income is this, and I'm going to take X, Y, Z actions and make it, gradually increase or, rapidly increase for some of you over time. And, you're going to have the same thing on expenses. And it's like, well, I'm going to take these actions and maybe negotiate this insurance bill, and you kind of figure out what that's going to be. That leads you down to, net operating income. And then you wind up applying debt, all the stuff. And you wind up with this cash flow, right?
You're listening to the Real Estate Runway podcast, powered by Quattro Capital, where we're all about alternative business and investment strategies to help you amplify life and maximize wealth. Here's your host, Chad, the investment maverick.
All right. Real Estate Runway family, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. I think we're in like 200 and something now. I don't know what it is today, but it's been a lot. So thank you for coming back and joining us for another episode today. I'm joined with my good friend, Brian Heller of Fairway Equities. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years. Finally agreed to come on the show and give us a little bit of his background and knowledge. And we're going to talk some fun stuff today as well. So before we get into the show, folks, reminder, if you get any value out of the show whatsoever or anything we do at Quattro, man, just interact with it. If you're watching it on a YouTube short, like it, swipe it. If you're on podcasts, give us a review. Just tell the algorithm that you like it, and that it'll show it to more people and get the word out just to people like you, okay? People just like you, so pay it forward. Without further ado, Brian, welcome to the show. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great, Chad. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and as per usual, thank you for being patient with my schedule. Once we finally agreed to do this, I think this is reschedule number 3, but here we are. So such is life, right?
No problem. Yeah, look, you're a busy guy. Real estate's a busy industry right now, so totally understand and happy to be here today.
Yeah, man. Good to have you here. Okay, so before we get into the fun topic I think we're going to get into today, Brian, I know you, I've known you for years, but the audience doesn't. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate. You've got quite the numerous background in real estate, and just what got you to where you are today with Fairway Equities.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Chad, my name's Brian Heller. I'm the founder and CEO of Fairway Equities. We're a real estate investment firm. We specialize in B and C class assets in the value add space. I was born and raised in California, ultimately went to USC and worked in entertainment for 10 years. As you can see, I've got my survivor torch here behind me, since we don't get to use our cool backgrounds today, but I always keep that in my office as a good reminder. But started off in real estate sort of at rock bottom in March of 2010, was an apartment broker in Los Angeles for a little over 8 years, doing a couple $100 million in transactions, and also got some really great experience as an on-site manager for a 30-unit building right off the Sunset Strip. So you can imagine the type of characters and stuff I got to deal with there, and just really great. Not only sort of asset management type experience, but just in dealing with a property sort of at an in-person level, shall we say. Moved to Nashville 8 years ago because I wanted to get more into the principal side of things. And since I've been here, I've done everything from building houses to doing some land entitlement that we sold to one of the largest home builders in America, and then have been doing apartment syndication. We went, full cycle on a deal that we bought in 2019. And, we're lucky and fortunate enough to sell that at the perfect time in 2022. But since we did that, the market's been a little bit more difficult, and ULI voting Nashville the number one market in the world for the past 3 years has proven to make it a pretty competitive environment here locally. But look, long term, Nashville and the Southeast is still prime markets, and we're certainly focused here in addition to some markets like Denver, Phoenix, Texas, and Savannah, where we have some strategic partners. And overall, we're really excited. I think the next, call it 12 to 18 months, is going to be a really exciting time in our space. It seems like, while no one can truly call bottom, we're certainly a lot closer to a bottom right now than we are to a top. I think, we're getting ready to come out of recovery and go into the expansion phase. And with multifamily being a long-term asset, we're looking to start planting seeds now to grow for the next 5 to 7 years and bring our investors really strong returns. So we're excited, glad to be here today, and looking forward to getting some great deals out to our investors here in the very near future.
Yeah, it's amazing, Brian. And, look here, it is August 29th of 2024. We're entering into a time where the market's given us a 90% chance of one rate cut and about a 50% chance of at least two in the back half of this year. So I do think, and CBRE honestly just called, hey, we're finally at the bottom. So they agree that we have bottomed out. I don't know who's right. And, in my experience, everyone who's tried to predict the Fed movement, the Fed doesn't even know what they're going to do. So we'll see. We might be coming back to you having a different tune in 6 months, but I love getting over my skis and predicting a little bit. I do think we're going to see, some growth cycles start to happen again. So kudos to everyone who has been going through the tightening cycle. Sounds like, Brian, you and Fairway Equities have done rather well. And it's a great segue into what we're going to talk about today, because what you just described is there's not a lot out there right now that makes sense. And that's, again, folks, that's because interest rates blew up, faster than we saw them do it in a while. And cap rates were very compressed, and it just, you were upside down if you tried to buy anything. And so that's where patience and persistence comes in. But before we hit that landmark on the head, Brian and I were having a little bit of a conversation about what to talk about today. There's been so many podcasts about, hey, here's how we do a value add, and here's the interest rates, and here's what's going on with the Fed, and here's inflation and stagflation, and here's what's going on. So it's like we can go on and on about that. I'm tired of it. But we're both golfers, and we love the game of golf. It is a game of strategy. It is a game of patience. It is a game of adaptability. And we're going to spend some time talking about what you can learn from the game of golf in the game of real estate, because it's very, very similar. So Brian, let me kind of let you lead that thought off a little bit on, how you came up with the idea to really, that's probably the little bit behind what the name Fairway Equities is as well. But, let's start there.
100%. Yeah. And Chad, my apologies. I forgot to tee you up there, pun intended, for our episode. So my apologies. Yes, I should have finished my bio by saying I'm an avid golfer. I love to travel, and I'm a huge foodie, and I've got a wife and a daughter here in Nashville. So again, my apologies. So we'll try this again here. But yeah, so golf is definitely a passion of mine, and I found a lot of parallels sort of between the two. Obviously, on the golf course, you do see a lot of people who work in real estate, whether that's brokers, mortgage brokers, investors, etc. So not only is it a fun hobby, but a great place to do some networking and find some investors and stuff as well. But I put together a list of some of the top ways that golf expertise translates into real estate victories. and you started to hit on it. So the first one is patience and persistence, right? So as we both know, golf requires patience and persistence to improve your game, qualities that are also super essential in real estate investing, where, you know, deals can take time to materialize. And, you know, in golf, right, you know, mastering a difficult shot, whether, you know, a flop shot or being able to do a draw or a fade or, you know, on demand, right, which we all wish that we could, or maybe I'm speaking for myself personally. I don't know where your game's at these days. But, you know, it certainly requires repeated practice and learning from each attempt. And, you know, progress might be slow, but the persistence eventually pays off, right? And in real estate, to sort of, you know, give an example alongside that, as we all know, closing a deal can be a lengthy process that's, you know, riddled with hazards and obstacles that, you know, are difficult to overcome. And, you know, it's an intense process that involves everything from due diligence to negotiations to waiting for the right market conditions. And, you know, investors have to be patient and persistent to see their efforts pay off over time. So those are certainly two of the parallels that I've seen. Not sure if you want to chime in there with any of your thoughts.
You know, I do, Brian. But and just as you were talking, I'm thinking like, you know, and folks, if you don't understand the game of golf, don't worry. Like we're gonna kind of, you know, draw these parallels for you. It is a complex game, but like most of us have seen golf on TV, and so you see the big guys, you know, they're slamming a driver off the tee and it goes, you know, 350 yards or whatever the pros are hitting it these days, and then you see, you know, them in the middle of the fairway or maybe off in the rough a little bit, the higher cut grass, and they'll hit an iron, you know, and they'll try to be there. They're trying to target the flag off the tee. They're trying to hit the fairway. Off the fairway, they're trying to hit, you know, on the green close to the flag. And then, you know, maybe they come up a little bit short, and so they're in a bunker, you know, a sand, basically the beach. You're out there on the beach by the pin, and they've got to hit an even shorter, more more nuanced shot to get a little bit closer. And then you got to hit a putt. You know, a putt is that little bitty rolly shot on the green where you're trying to actually just tap it into the hole. And the funny thing is, every single one of those shots counts the same. And I know Brian will agree. It's very frustrating in the game of golf to hit a 300-yard drive off the tee and then have a 1-inch tap in. And guess what? Each one of those is one, right? And so, you know, just kind of playing off the patience and persistence a little bit. And to me, the persistence also comes into, man, you really do have to practice every one of those shots. To be able to hit a fairway every time, you probably got to hit 10,000 drives, you know, with the right mechanics to make it really stick as a habit. The same thing goes with hitting approach shots, you know, onto the green. The same thing goes, I mean, probably more with hitting bunker shots because they're so diverse. You could have a, you know, any different place you're in that bunker is a different shot you kind of have to hit, whether the ball's buried in the sand or whether it's sitting fluff on top of it. That's a different shot. And so real estate is very, very similar. If you say real estate equals golf, right? I just described like at least 4 shots, and some of those are like 4 times 4, right? When you get into the bunker, that you have to kind of master to be a master of that game. Well, that's kind of the way it is in real estate. In real estate, there are so many different shots, if you will, that you have to know how to hit, right? And just in one segment of real estate, right? And so let's call that one hole. There's 18 holes in golf. There's probably 18 plus segments in real estate, commercial real estate, office, medical office, multifamily. I mean, just it goes on. You got triple net lease. That's all a different hole with a different strategy you have to apply. And then if you try to apply the wrong strategy on the wrong hole, you're not going to do very well. So, you know, it does require, being good at golf is about like being good at real estate. You have to master a lot of shots. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of persistence to practice those and, you know, be humble enough to know when you're not ready to hit that shot, which I guess kind of segues into the, you know, the next piece of it. I don't know. Do we want to go to adaptability next or risk management? Let's go to risk management because I kind of just teed you up on that one. I'm going to say that all day now. Just teed you up on that one. And you got to know when you shouldn't hit that shot, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and maybe just closing out the last part, muscle memory, right? And
Oh
just
yeah.
continually doing, even if it's the same task and it seems boring, but especially in real estate, compounding, right? If you keep making mistakes, that's when you get your sevens and your eights and your nines, right? But if you take your medicine and sometimes hit out and then take the proper shot, it can be a lot better. Just like in real estate, if sometimes maybe something small or something happened that was unexpected, if you address it and move on, I think not only usually will the real estate perform better, but your investors will be happier and all that good stuff. So but yeah, segueing into risk management, look, golfers are constantly assessing risks and making decisions based on
I'm so sorry,
probability.
Brian. Hang on just a second. I just had a thought we have to share before we go.
Okay, go
The
ahead.
way you were saying it before we go away from that and into risk management, you were talking about you said something that us golfers understand very well, and that is take your medicine, right? So let me just illustrate that for folks who aren't really used to the golf course. Let's say you hit a ball off the tee, and instead of landing in the plush, nice short fairway where you have a beautiful look at the green, you pull it off to the left, and it's in a bunch of trees in the middle of the forest, right? That is a similar situation in real estate. Let's say you discover, you didn't do your diligence well enough, or you just missed it, and you discover a major plumbing problem, right? That's kind of like hooking it off in the woods. So you can kind of, you can make one of two choices when you're on the golf course. You can say, okay, well, I need to point this shot at the green, despite the fact that there's 47 trees between me and the green, and you can keep trying to blast through the woods and try to get to the green. That would be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna fix the issue on this plumbing problem. I'm going to maybe put a Band-Aid on it, or I'm going to just press through and think that it's going to be okay. Rather than take your medicine, turn yourself 90 degrees back towards the short grass and just hit a little wasted chip shot to get out of the way, so your next shot has a clear shot at the green. And so that is taking your medicine means fix the problem, right? Don't let, especially in real estate, whether it's physical or financial or anything of that sort, contractual problems, don't let them sit, right? Sometimes you do have to take your medicine. It will cost you money, but if you let things sit in real estate, they compound. And what does real estate do? It decays. So if you have a problem, it's going to decay and get worse. And yeah, so just wanted to kind of hit on that one. But Brian, back to you. Risk management. I'm so excited for this part now.
Yeah, no, those were all really great points. I'm glad we slowed it down there for a second, and you hit on some really a really great example there with plumbing. So, yeah, so one of the next things, or one of the next parallels, I guess we would say, that golf and real estate have is risk management, right? So golfers are constantly assessing risks and making decisions based on probability, kind of like the trees that we just talked about, right? So golfers are assessing risks on every shot, right? Such as deciding whether to go for the green over the water or play it safe and lay up. They're considering the probabilities and potential consequences of their decisions, right? So in real estate, similarly, investors are evaluating risks, whether that's market volatility, property conditions, financing options. You have to make informed decisions based on the potential returns versus the risks. And as you know, you got to buy it right, you got to finance it right, you got to manage it right, and in each one of those phases, there's a ton of decisions, a ton of opportunity for risks and pitfalls, and how you handle those and how you mitigate risk is ultimately going to determine the size of your reward.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I guess to kind of take it back to an example here, folks, let's just talk about pro formas or business plans or underwriting, whatever you call it. We all make some kind of a financial model when we're buying a house for rent or an apartment building or an office building, and then it's going to include things like, okay, well, the income is this, and I'm going to take X, Y, Z actions and make it, gradually increase, or, rapidly increase for some of you over time. And, you're going to have the same thing on expenses. And it's like, well, I'm going to take these actions and maybe negotiate this insurance bill, and you kind of figure out what that's going to be. That leads you down to, net operating income. And then you wind up applying debt. all the stuff, and you wind up with this cash flow, right? And then if I actually graphed out your pro formas, it's probably got a relatively straight, boring, moderate line. And let me tell you what actually happens, right? And it's kind of like the story of success in life. You think, okay, I see where I want to go. I'm going to have this gradual upslope to get there. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get it. And what actually happens is, if you've ever seen that graphic where it's like, okay, I start off and then there's a valley and I climb out of the valley and then it's a mountain and then there's a tornado on the other side of the mountain and I fall down the mountain. I mean, there's all this kind of stuff of what it actually looks like. And so, thinking about risk management, if you were to give Tiger Woods any club out of his bag and say, hey, here is, let's say it's a 7-iron, right? Just the middle part of his club. And you said, hey, I want you to hit 150 balls at that flag. That's whatever yards he hits that ball away or that club away, right? What's actually going to happen is, he's not going to hit. He's a pro, one of the best in the world for a long time. He's not going to hit every single one of those shots right on that pin. They're not all going to go in the hole. Some are going to be close. Some will be a little left, a little right, a little long, a little short. And so you can imagine if he's like throwing darts with his golf club at that pin, there's going to be, 150 little darts kind of surrounding that pin. And well, guess what? If you then draw a circle around all of the dispersion of those dots, you're going to realize, okay, that's the tolerance he has to have in any risk that he takes. And so why am I telling you so much about the golf game? It's the same thing in real estate. If I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take this shot, or I'm going to buy this property, I'm going to apply this strategy to this property, and here's how I think it's going to go. Well, I'm envisioning it landing 2 inches from the pin or going in. What may actually happen is a wind may come up that you can't control, or, it may be a little less humid than it usually is, and the ball flies a little farther and you land long. The point is, when you're picking your shot to hit in real estate, you got to understand what are the likely outcomes. And so here's where we're talking about risk. If I take that same circle, so let's say it's plus or minus 15 yards around that pin that Tiger Woods is trying to hit at. Well, if there is a big, massive pond that is 10 yards from the hole, and he doesn't adjust his shot accordingly and hit a little bit longer to move that circle of dispersion past the water, right? About half of his shots are going to wind up short in the water, And so it's the same thing in real estate, where you're trying to manage risk. You're trying to say, okay, what winds could come up? And you're not going to know, right? You have to take your best guess with the data. You throw some grass up in the air and see what way the wind's blowing the second you hit the shot. And it might change by the time your ball actually gets to the freaking green. That happens. And so like risk management is just, what all elements can I think about that are outside of my control, including my ability to execute on the shot? And, how can I make sure that 98% of my outcomes are livable? They may not be hole-in-ones, they may not be tap-ins, but they'll be on the green, even if it's 30 feet away, not in the water. That's a big difference.
Hey friends, do you ever wonder what goes into producing a podcast? Here's the thing. While anyone can create a podcast, navigating the booking and publishing process can be quite arduous. For years now, we here at the Real Estate Runway have been working with podpulse.live, and they are the real deal, let me tell you. Podpulse.live allows us to focus on our content. We record our story and let Podpulse handle the rest. From automated booking on the front end to a full-service production shop on the back end, Podpulse.live allows us to focus on what matters in content creation while they handle the rest of the machine at a very affordable price. Head over to podpulse.live or see the link in the description below to book a call. Let's get your voice out there.
I'm glad you brought up that thought of, going for the hole-in-one, right? Because that's what we all want, right? Or a lot of times with real estate, people talk about, I want to hit a grand slam. Well, there's plenty of people that have made a lot of money hitting singles and doubles and doing things properly. And usually when you hunt for the flag or go for the flag, as opposed to maybe, like you said, laying up or going a little bit left, a little bit right, a little bit long, depending on if there's water or sand, ultimately you can end up with the safer outcome than if you go for that hole-in-one is usually when you end up in a lot more trouble than you expected. So certainly, like I said, lots of decisions to make, and mitigating risk is top priority in the end. And whether that's at the beginning, middle, or end, like you said, you might never know you not, and really you need to be looking out for it in all three phases, so to speak, but being aware that, conditions might not be perfect, or that things could change at any moment, and being ready to adapt. The next thing we're going to talk about is really how you can be successful in real estate. So with that, I'll sort of move into the next point we're going to talk about, which is adaptability. And, so golfers have to be able to adapt to changing conditions. And you brought up weather several times when you were just talking there, or course layout. And, this adaptability is crucial for real estate investors as well, who need to navigate market fluctuations and unexpected challenges. And like we said, so while golfers are dealing with layouts and weather and varying green speeds, the success on the golf course requires adjusting strategy and technique to meet these changing circumstances. And in real estate, market conditions can change due to economic shifts, new laws and regulations. Look at what's happening in California right now, unexpected events like a global pandemic or a natural disaster. Investors have to change their strategies, whether it's shifting to a different property type, shifting to a different market, maybe a different class of property, a different type of financing. There's so many different ways that, you have to be prepared to adapt in real estate, even rising expenses lately, right? Like insurance and, just everything really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because so we talked about a little bit of breeze on the golf course. We talked about, maybe there's a water hazard you can see over there. Maybe there's some sand, like a lot of those are things you can see, or you can kind of you just kind of know they're there. Right. And then there, you mentioned the weather. There's okay, what if I'm on a golf course and I'm trying to play and I have to finish? I can't it's not in real life where I can just say, hey, there's lightning, I got to go home. But this big thunderstorm shows up, and all of a sudden, there's a tornado ripping up the golf course in front of you, and you're trying to hit a golf ball, right? I mean, it's not going to work, and so that's kind of what, when you think about the big debt cycle, which is, we've talked about this on the show before. It's about 100-year cycle. There's, 50 years in one direction, 50 in the other, but there's little bitty cycles all along the way. A lot of experts believe we are in a big debt cycle. And the reason these happen is because they happen so slow and then so suddenly, and they're so far apart that people who are living and making decisions are usually dead by the time the next one comes, right? And so, you figure that it's well, we think we can predict the weather, we kind of have some early warning radars and things like that, but can you necessarily, with the tools you have on a golf course, always know that a big storm's not about to come over the hill and mess up your round? And that's unfortunately what a lot of people have felt lately is, we all had a game plan that has been, here's how I get around the golf course. And okay, I get some wind and I get some water. I know how to avoid all this stuff. And then a storm just comes and rips up the hole you're trying to putt into, And so that's how extreme, it can be when you're talking about adaptability. And sometimes that means you may have to put your clubs back in the golf cart and wait until the storm passes to finish the game,
100%. Which again goes back to patience and persistence if we want to go full circle.
It really does. It really does. I really love that we brought this to the show today, because I've never, you and I probably both played golf for, double-digit years and applied all of this all along, but never really realized the parallels until we talked about it. And it is amazing because that I want to say this to encourage everyone listening to the show, whether you're a passive investor, whether you are, an active operator, applying some kind of strategy, listen to this again, because every piece that we just talked about, you have to have. If you're going to go, play a course in California, you need to master the shots you need to know for that course. If you're going to go play a course in Scotland, well, I tell you what, you're going to have to learn to deal with wind, right? And so it's like in real estate's local. So where you're going to play, what kind of hole you're going to play on, that is the type of building you're going to play in. And then what type of strategy are you going to, I mean, even just on the same hole, I could play it super conservative, slow and steady wins the race, or I could play super aggressive and try to get there and get there in half the shots, which is a little more risky. And so you have to master each individual shot that it takes to get there. And if you don't know how, last little bit I have for you, if you don't know how, find someone who does, because I promise you, in the game of golf, there is someone on this earth who has hit that shot you're trying to figure out how to hit and who does it successfully. And that's the same in real estate. There's someone who knows the play, there's someone who knows the strategy, and there's someone who's already made 10 mistakes and hit 3 balls in the water that you can learn from if you just listen to them.
Really great advice, Chad. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, we're coming to the end of our time, so let's do a couple of the Quattro questions, and then we'll let you get back to your busy day of running Fairway Equities. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. First question: what is your superpower? Could be life or business, your choice, and how does it serve you well?
I think my superpower is in due diligence. It's something that I take really seriously, and I think that doing it properly is what really can set up an investment to be as profitable and as risk-free, hopefully, as possible. It's something that I take a lot of pride in and have really noticed that when working alongside other people where they're usually willing to maybe stop on the due diligence, I'm usually digging a little bit deeper, willing to make a few more calls to see, if we might be able to do X, Y, or Z, or get a few more quotes to really see if we can improve the opportunity. So that's definitely an area that I like. And maybe that's because I'm really passionate about taking projects from concept to completion. And so if you can get the concept right and get the roadmap and, get the path set out, that, hopefully that will make the entire process and lead to the completion being as successful as possible.
Yeah, man, I would agree with that being your superpower. You're one of the most detailed individuals I've known in this business. And, just to take it back, folks, I mean, if due diligence doesn't mean that much to you, think of it this way. Brian is the guy, and by the way, the pros do this, Brian is the guy who goes out before a golf tournament and he is going to walk every single one of those holes. He's going to play the course once if he can and hit 2 practice balls the whole way through. He's going to practice different shots, make sure that what he thinks is going to happen when that ball lands on the green happens, and then he's going to go play. So that's what due diligence is. It's the prep work and the investigative work and the really risk mitigation. It's like, okay, well, if I practice this shot, or if I watch, let's take away practice. If he watches 3 other players from last year's tournament hit this shot and 2 out of 3 go in the water, man, he's probably going to hit a different shot, to try not to lose that stroke. So, man, I can't stop, dude. It's anyway. So,
and thank you. You're giving me a lot more credit as a golfer than I deserve. So thank you.
I said you were good at diligence. I didn't say you were a good golfer. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Next question. So let's flip it on its head. What is your biggest failure? Could be life or business. And most importantly, what did you take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, look, failure is a strong word, right? But I want to bring this up because this is actually something that you and I were sort of, in a small way, both a part of. So I had a deal that I had put under contract, within like a week of when COVID happened. And so that obviously proved to be an incredibly difficult situation. And it was, what's frustrating is one that I had worked with the brokers on, for like a year and a half, finally get it, go under contract. And then, you can't do anything with it, basically, right? You can't get inside any of the units. The world stopped. Let's just keep it simple, right? And so, what I was able to do, the information I was able to get, came back with some, we'll just call it a lot of risks to mitigate potentially, at least in my opinion. And, it was an incredibly difficult capital raising environment, and, ultimately wasn't able to put the deal together, only to sit back and watch over the course of the last 3 years when real estate took off that multiple people have sold this property and made millions of dollars and actually chose not to address some of the issues that I felt were very necessary to address. So, who was right, who was wrong, who knows? If I've talked about this on other podcasts, if I would play Monday morning quarterback, and I think you would agree, as I know you passed on this opportunity as well to work alongside me, is that these risks probably should have mitigated. These people, as we all know, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, or right place, right time. Right, we can all get that extra wind gust that gets us over the lake, that bounce that goes in the hole. I think they got it, but that's something that has been hard to get over. Obviously, at this point, I certainly have done it, but I think it's a good learning experience to talk about, because I think we all have that thing in business that we really wanted to do, we worked hard to do. Something came up, we couldn't do it. Someone else did it, they succeeded, and obviously that would lead to frustration, or, as you might say, a feeling of failure.
Yeah, well, it's frustrating there because I feel like I have to do it again. I got to take it right back to the game of golf, and you kind of did it already. But it's like taking excessive risk on the golf course is like gambling, right? And it's like playing blackjack, because eventually it's going to get you, right. And the golf courses are set up in such a way where if you take too many risks, you're gonna pay for it. And so, yeah, that's an example of where you and I chose not to do it, because we looked at the hole and we decided, well, 75% chance we don't do well with this, 25% chance we do. We didn't take the shot, right? And then, okay, someone else took the shot, but they happened to take the shot in the biggest tailwind of the decade, which is great. They got lucky, but if they took that shot today, they would be bankrupt, right? If they took that shot not in 2020. But in 2022, and they're now 2 years in, they would have probably lost the asset, right? Or be putting a bunch of cash in. So it's like you have to predict the weather as well as you can, and predict the risk of the shot as well as you can, and then you have to know you have no control over whether the good Lord decides to make the wind blow in your face or behind you as soon as you hit that ball. So you got to just make sure that, gosh, I hope I have enough juice to go into the wind or with the wind, right?
100%.
Oh man, we could go all day on this, dude. I want to go play golf now. Unfortunately, I'm actually, for those of you on the show, I'm nursing a ruptured Achilles back to health right now. So because I thought I could play soccer with Guatemalans as a 37-year-old man on a mission trip. So anyway, I digress. Brian, last question. This one's a real hard one. How do we get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you from the show?
Yeah, best way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is fairwayequities.com. Again, that's fairwayequities.com. I've got a number of free resources there, an ebook, a due diligence checklist. We're about to start doing some webinars monthly. So, if you're tired of listening to Chad and you want to check out someone new, come over and check us out at Fairway Equities, and we'd love to help you on your real estate journey. But in all seriousness, Chad's a great guy and incredibly accomplished, and we should all be so lucky as to have strong portfolios as strong as Quattro's is. So.
That's the funny thing. If when you see someone who is accomplished, you also notice they probably don't have the best golf game. So that, unfortunately, I spend too much time practicing real estate, not golf. But that's neither here nor there. Brian, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate the time, your knowledge, the comparison. I've never had a conversation like this on the show, so this was really unique. But just appreciate everything you do. Appreciate your thoroughness. Appreciate your friendship, man.
Awesome. Same. And let's get out on the course here soon when your Achilles is feeling better.
Spring 25, fair weather golfer. All right.
Sounds good.
Everyone, this has been another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. Until next time, over and out. Remember, like, subscribe, swipe, whatever you're on, just interact with it, pay it forward. Talk to you next time.
We hope this episode was insightful and brought value to your day. If so, please be awesome and leave us a 5-star review. Find out how Team Quattro can help you at thequattroway.com and scroll down for more info. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Runway podcast.